comments or announcements, I'll go ahead and turn over, and because my connection is so unwieldy, I'll just go ahead and let them do their own introductions. And thank you so much to Amanda and Adam for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having us. I almost forgot to unmute, but I am Amanda Dennis. I'm the Director of Special Education in Fayette County Schools, and this is beginning my 9th year in Fayette County. I took over as the director in 2015. Before that, I was the associate director there. So we, you know, in the world of special education, we are always trying to innovate and think outside the box, and COVID has certainly pushed our limits in that. We are trying very hard to partner with families and think in terms of, you know, how do we make this work for each individual student? And that's tough to do in this kind of environment, but we certainly are trying our absolute best to do that. And so I have with me Adam Liechty. He's our Associate Director of Special Ed, who is in charge of our autism programming and services. So Adam will be your resident expert tonight for the topic at hand, but I'm certainly here to try to answer questions, to interject if there's additional information that's needed. But Adam joined us a couple of years ago. I won't introduce him, I'll let him do that, but he's been with us. This is just starting your 3rd year, Adam? And I'm sure he thinks it seems like a lot longer than that, but I will turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you very much for having me and Amanda tonight to—
Welcome.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I just said welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. We appreciate it very much. And so what I will be doing here in a few moments is sharing some information, the most up-to-date information about our district, and some of the supports that we are providing children with autism. As Amanda said, this is the beginning of my 3rd year in Fayette County. And I'm very excited to work in a district that I think is innovative and progressive in helping to support all children with disabilities, specifically children with autism. And my training is, my formal training is as a school psychologist. I'm a school psychologist by training. And before coming to Fayette County, I was the Assistant Director of Special Education in Campbell County, which is in northern Kentucky. And so I'm glad to be in central Kentucky and be part of a tremendous and large team and do some of the things, the unique things that Fayette County is able to do. Mrs. Grayson, do you mind to allow me to be a co-host so that I can share my screen?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'll fix it for you.
Thank you.
You should already be able to share your screen.
I am. I see that now.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to share a brief PowerPoint with everyone, and I'll share with the group some of the new websites that we're working on to support families specifically during this time, and some of the resources that we have available and at your disposal. So let me share this PowerPoint. All right. So again, thank you very much for having us. I wanted to start with our mission, what the mission of our department is. The special education department is to support students, staff, and families by using data to provide effective evidence-based instruction and services to ensure student growth and successful transition. So we have a overarching mission, and we dive a little bit deeper with all groups. And so I'll share more of that in our vision moving forward. But I wanted everyone to know who our current staff is. I think many of us have been here at least a number of years. Mrs. Dennis is our director. And then we have 2 associate directors that support our elementary age schools. Those 2 directors are Christina Grace and Michelle Canoy. They both support our 36 elementary schools, and they are kind of the point of contact within the department for our achievement and compliance coaches and for our principals. We have 1 associate director that supports our middle schools, our 11 middle schools, and that is Becky Dahlstrom. And we have 1 associate director that supports our high schools, our 6 traditional high schools, and that is Mrs. Rachel Baker. And then myself, I am, my official title is Associate Director of Assessment. I, like the rest of the associate directors and Mrs. Dennis, wear lots of hats, and one of my hats is to support our autism programming and our autism resource specialists. So we're a very blessed department. We have a tremendous amount of support within our department and a lot of expertise. And I'm really proud to lead just a terrific group of professionals, and that begins with our autism resource specialist. Many of you know Mrs. Tanya Sturgill. She supports our elementary aged group of children with autism. We have a relatively new secondary autism resource specialist, Mrs. Tracy Despain. She was hired in the summer of 2019 for that position. So she's been in the position for a year. She's going into year 2, and she supports middle and high school children, families, and staff of children with autism. We have I'm very proud as well to support our large school psychology staff. We have robust and evidence-based practices for evaluations in all areas, but that is certainly the case with children with autism. And 2 of the school psychologists that I wanted to just highlight were Mrs. Amy Detchen. She has been in the district for I think 15 plus years, and she is a tremendous support for our Fayette County Preschool Center. So she does many of the initial evaluations of children coming in through First Steps and parent referrals or other referral sources. Dr. Jamie Roig is, she's a school psychologist. She primarily serves Liberty Elementary, but she has a strong background in supporting children with autism and is extremely knowledgeable, and we turn to her for her guidance and support for lots of things, but K through 12 evaluations of children with autism. Some additional support staff that, again, I think that we just sets us apart from some other school districts and school systems is that about 1.5 years ago, Mrs. Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, we ventured into hiring our own internal BCBA staff. And so we have 4 full-time BCBAs on staff that I help direct and supervise. And those individuals are listed on the screen. They are all tremendous professionals, well accomplished, and have proven to be very helpful already in their short time in the district. This past summer, well, it actually started last year, we started piloting the notion of having registered behavior technicians in the district. And so with support from our superintendent and Mrs. Dennis, this has now become a reality as well. We have 4 full-time RBTs on staff that are supported and supervised by our BCBAs. And so those individuals are listed here on the page as well. So just very thankful that we are able to offer this level of support and services to students with autism and to students with global developmental delays. That's one of the things that I certainly say to all groups when I speak about our BCBAs and RBTs, is that they were not just hired to support children with autism. They were hired to support our department and any child with developmental disability that has significant or severe behavioral challenges. So we're pleased to have them on board and supporting our children. So I wanted to talk briefly about our strategic plan. And the strategic plan, as it includes supporting children with autism. I briefly mentioned our first priority, which is conducting evaluations in a best practice and a professional way. And again, I think that, Fayette County, I've worked in several other school systems, and Fayette County is blessed really to have the ability to provide incredible training to our staff. All 40 of our school psychologists over the last 2 years have been trained by Dr. Stephen Canny, who is the director of the Autism Program and Center at the University of Missouri. He came in and he has offered week-long professional development for our school psychologists to be well-versed in the ADOS and the ADIR. So we believe very strongly in implementing evidence-based evaluation practices, and I think that we do the level best and really the gold standard when it comes to evaluating children with autism. The second strategic plan objective is to build capacity within our schools, and this is a big initiative and goal each year to help support our staff in building their own knowledge and capacity around supporting children with autism. And so this is what Tanya and Tracy, they spend a lot of time supporting staff, supporting schools, and supporting you as family members and community members in working with children with autism. And so they conduct countless professional development. And again, we are thankful for their expertise and their knowledge to be able to do that and facilitate this strategic plan goal. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is the goal to engage family and have community involvement. And so I just wanted to highlight this, that networking and providing training opportunities that families will feel supported and confident regarding the quality of services and supports provided to their children. So this is something that we accomplish in a couple of ways that Mrs. Sturgill and Mrs. Despain have been. Mrs. Sturgill for years has been facilitating monthly family and parent trainings and meeting nights here within our district, and those are going to continue for us as well. They will be done virtually this school year, or at least for the time being. Mrs. Despain taking over the secondary autism resource specialist position. Her focus is not only to support the family, but also to engage in peer networking and facilitating peer networking groups with our adolescents and pre-adolescent children. So that is going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but we will do our best to support that as we continue in this remote environment that we're operating in. And then the other thing that I was going to mention is that our BCBAs, through our ACCs and our achievement and compliance coaches at the school level, are going to be reaching out to families to see if they would like any specific training or supports around severe behavior. And I'll show you one of the web pages that they are working on right now that is full of some quick short videos for families around a variety of topics, and it also has a lot of other resources embedded within it. So one of the things that we are particularly proud of, and this is work that we jointly partner with the Kentucky Autism Training Center on, is our Foundational 5 work. This is a evolution of looking at the evidence-based practices of working with children with autism and supporting them through what we believe are the 5 foundational components that lead to success for children with autism. And so I have those listed here. And if you have been to any training with Mrs. Sturgill or Mrs. Amy Oates, who was the secondary autism resource specialist before Mrs. Despain, they have trained on these 5 foundational components and how to implement them for a number of years. And these are the 5 things that we are using to help support teachers when we go in and work with teachers that are requesting assistance and support from us. So we have we have developed not only training around these 5 evidence-based practices, but we have fidelity checklists that we utilize when we go into classrooms. We help support teachers by providing real-time feedback and analysis of the data when it comes to implementation of these foundational 5 evidence-based practices. So we're proud of this work as well. We think that it's meaningful work, and we think that it is producing results, and we stand behind the foundational 5 work that we're doing with our staff and students right now. So I have alluded to a couple of new things that are being developed. They are still not officially published websites, but they are works in progress, and I just wanted to share with you where things are with regard to our Family Support for Autism website and the ABA Skills Library website, which is a subsection of the larger Family Support website that has been developed by our BCBA. So bear with me just for a moment while I click on this, and there we go. So this web page, as I mentioned, has not been.
Adam,
yes.
We're only seeing the PowerPoint. You may have to stop share and then reshare.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we good, Amanda?
Yes.
All right. Let me move my Zoom bars around so that I can navigate this web page here a little bit better. So this is the Family Support web page that's being developed by Ms. Sturgill and Mrs. Despain. And you can see that our mission in regards to specifically working with children with autism is embedded right here in the middle of the home page. You can also see that we certainly emphasize our strategic plan, and those 3 components of our strategic plan are right here on the first, on the home page as well. So up at the top there is components for what do you do as a family member if you have a concern about your child, and it maybe a child find a concern about does my child have autism? And so we have dedicated one part of this particular website to going step by step through that. So should a child be evaluated for autism, and it leads to several questions and some additional information about early signs of autism, understanding autism, what will an evaluation look like? So, we get a lot of questions regarding what does an autism evaluation look like? And I mentioned a couple components that we feel very strongly about, and that is for at least initial evaluations, conducting an ADOS, an Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule evaluation, as well as an ADIR evaluation interview with a family member. We also look at background information. We do structured and unstructured observations, and we look at their communication status and their communication functioning. So we have embedded not only eligibility components set forth by the Kentucky Department of Education, we also utilize the DSM to help us accurately make recommendations for eligibility when it comes to an ARC. So at the bottom here is who do I contact. For preschoolers, that would be the preschool program. And as I mentioned, Mrs. Detchen is one of the school psychologists that supports our preschool program. And she is there and available to answer questions. And then for our school-age children, those would be kindergarten through 12th grade. We encourage you to reach out to your homeschools child ACC. That's the Achievement and Compliance Coach. And if you ever needed to know who that person was, they should know that in the front office of the homeschool. If you can't find accurate information, you can certainly contact me or one of the other associate directors, and we would be happy to help find that particular person for you. So there are some other documents that we have embedded here in preparing for meetings. So the parent rights and procedural safeguards, that document is included in here. And we're going to include the IEP checklist, and let me see what, I can't read what this one says, but common special education terms and acronyms, because we certainly like our acronyms in special education. So, so what happens after an evaluation and an ARC, an admissions and release committee meeting that would look at eligibility and potentially determine if a student meets criteria for the category of autism? It leads then to offering an individualized education plan, an IEP, and then providing specially designed instruction through the IEP that is determined appropriate through that ARC meeting. So this particular page has some other resources. It has a link to our autism resource main page, which is still it's still active. It's on the Fayette County Public Schools page, and then there are a number of other appropriate resources for families to look through here as well. So what can we do with children at home? Hands-on resources for home. These have been differentiated depending on the level. And so we have preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school. and they have been broken down into those foundational 5 components. So this is still a website that is under construction by our staff, and they are adding things to it still, but I would anticipate within the next week or two this will be published in live. But you can see that this is the structure for each one of the levels. It's broken down specifically by the foundational 5, and there are different activities and information for each one of those evidence-based practices. So the next family meeting and family training at the elementary preschool level is going to be on September the 19th, and that will be from 10 to 12 p.m. And you can register, once this is live, you'll be able to register right here on the web page. And that will be led by Mrs. Sturgill. And then the high school, middle and high school family partnership meetings, they are listed on here too. They will be on September the 23rd and October the 22nd. Those are the dates that we have confirmed right now with Mrs. Despain, and you'll be able to register virtually here as well on the web page. So let me share this. So back to the other resource that I wanted to share with you this evening is the ABA Skills Library. And this will be available as well to families. But here are the 4 BCBAs, a little bit more about them and what their goals are in supporting children with developmental disabilities. And they have done some things here to provide some resources. They give information about ABA, what it is, who may benefit from these services. They also include some local community supports that we have in the Lexington and Central Kentucky area. And then what I mentioned earlier was the training videos. And so each one of our BCBAs has taken different topics. This one, parent implemented interventions. I believe this is about a 4-minute video on parent implemented interventions. And then we have one on reinforcement and motivation, behavior momentum. And then there are some preschool specific things on here, like washing your hands fun for preschoolers, reading with your preschooler. And then there is and this will continue to be added to by our BCBA staff, specifically after we get some more feedback on what would be appropriate and applicable for families moving forward. And that's what this piece is right here, which will be professional development webinars, which we will be offering and uploading that as well. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Mrs. Dennis, before I move forward, have I missed anything or any other components you would like to speak about?
I don't think so. I know that Ms. Wilson mentioned the structured classroom. That is in its pilot stages, so we didn't prepare a lot of information about that this evening. But it is so good to hear your feedback and to know that you are finding that to be a positive experience.
Parent is very, very happy, and I'm thrilled because I feel like that it doesn't matter if we were millionaires and we could pay to go to any school system that we wanted to, that we would get the type of help that we're getting now, and to see the type of instruction that the teachers within the school system, like what they're learning about children with big behaviors, is just invaluable. So I hope that this infant grows into a bigger program.
Well, we certainly hope that as well. And we do think that as we continue to build supports within every school, then the knowledge base and the evidence base practices will just grow, so that whatever school a student is in, they will have that knowledge base and ability to provide for them. But thank you for those very positive words. We appreciate it. We do. It is an example of us trying to think very intentionally and plan very intentionally. And I give a lot of kudos to Adam and the rest of our team, because they've done a tremendous amount of legwork on getting that up and running. And we really want it to be something that benefits on a much broader scale, how all of our practices are influenced by what we're seeing in that classroom. So thank you. Adam, I didn't really have anything else other than to say that I applaud the efforts and the work. We very much want to be partners with families, and we do listen to feedback and try to plan intentionally to fill any gaps and make sure that we are, being proactive, not reactive. That's the state we want to be in. And we know that as things change, and that's been very hard to be in during the pandemic, but we really do want to be proactive and grounded in what science and evidence-based tells us works. So I do appreciate Adam and the rest of the team very much for the work that's going on in this area.
So Amanda, I think the next slide is the questions that we received in advance. So I will move the PowerPoint forward, and we will answer these questions. So the first question is regarding children that are preschool age, 3 years, that are or 2. They would be 2 if they're transitioning from Part C, and need an assessment to determine eligibility. How will these assessments be completed? So we have worked to hopefully implement most components of evaluations that can reasonably be done in a best practice way. With some modifications, we have worked to do those things in a remote or virtual setting. So we are moving forward with evaluations from First Steps, and we have been doing that actually since very early on in the pandemic. We maybe had a few weeks lag where we were trying to figure out how to do this. But since probably April, we have been, sorry, I was getting some feedback there. So since April, we have been proceeding with First Step evaluations and other preschool evaluations. We are able with at this time, after working with district leadership and public health, we are able to do components in person in an individualized situation if we need components completed in person. So we do have some staff that we're following very stringent safety procedures, and we are contacting families as appropriate to do those components of evaluations if they're needed and we can't reasonably do them virtually or remotely. So that is our first priority, of course, in this particular environment that we are operating in. So I will, Amanda, anything else you want to add to that?
For that question, no, I hope that answers your question. I think that we have we often will say we're putting on our COVID hat to answer questions, because we have had to think outside the box on some of this, but still hold true to standardized best practices, and make sure that we are making informed, or ARCs are making informed decisions on the basis of valid, reliable assessments. So I think that the creative ways in which we've found to link, how a student can be observed remotely in the home when that is their natural school classroom environment at that point, has really helped with that. Moving on to that next question, if a child has difficulty with remote instruction, what types of options are available to that caregiver? So that is, I was on the phone just prior to this meeting with a parent who was concerned about that very notion. And so I really think it is all about the team problem solving, what other options we might be able to establish, whether it is a particular reinforcement that works, whether it is breaking it up into more manageable segments. Some students just cannot be tied to a screen. Well, most students, honestly, can't be tied to a screen all day long. They need some breaks. They need the opportunity to have some movement. So schools have really tried to build in some flexible time that allows for things related to the arts or physical movement. But as far as special education services go, if there is a struggle with the remote instruction, we will always refer them to hold an ARC meeting, get the team together, think about other ways we could approach this, making sure that we, first and foremost is safety, making sure that we're doing everything that we can from a safety standpoint, but also our need to provide a free, appropriate public education. And so in these times, what we're doing are some contingency plans. This is what the IEP says when we're traditionally in person all the time. And then the team will come together and say, okay, does this need to look slightly different during NTI 2DL? So if you haven't heard that acronym from us, that's non-traditional instruction, differentiated distance learning. So I like that first D, which is differentiated, meaning that we will switch things up and change the way that we're delivering if we, if a student is struggling, because we want to see progress. That's the goal for every student, is we've written these goals that are believed to be appropriate, and we want to see progress. So if what we're doing isn't working, we have to keep coming back to, I used to say the table, now I say the Zoom, to look for other solutions. Any other questions around that?
Okay. This is Melanie. Thank you for because I know it's a hard question, and I don't know. I appreciate you taking the time to try to come up with a answer. So make sure I'm understanding. Is there, worst case scenario, you have the meeting, the team comes together, you just work really hard to develop a plan. Is there ever an option for face-to-face instruction within the walls and halls of the school, or is it, are we always going to be trying to do it mainly remotely because of the COVID-19 and the safety issues?
That's truly one of the biggest struggles that we all have with this. We are considering it, and we'll definitely address it on an individual case-by-case basis. We aren't making any of those decisions entirely as a school district. We are in very close collaboration, or consultation, I should say, with the public health officials in the area. And so, as Adam mentioned, we're doing those face-to-face evaluations with a very strict criteria and protocol that's followed. And that was approved in advance by the health department, or we would not move forward with that. So the struggle with in-person, and that's not to say that it can't happen in those rare cases where we can't find a way for it to work at all remotely. But if the spread of the virus is so significant at a given point in time, and we recognize the need maybe for an individual student to do that, but we can't, then we do know that because of our obligation to provide FAPE, a free appropriate public education, when we can come back fully to in-person, the ARC team will be deciding for each individual student, are compensatory services owed? And so that, may end up being what we need to do to try to get the student to where they would otherwise have been had we not been dealing with this pandemic. But it's not off the table. It's not that it's something that we won't do. It isn't something that we've done yet on day 4 of this school year. But it is something that we're considering, and we want to be very mindful of safety for our children and their families and our staff. And so there's many things to grapple with. And one of those is, even if we decide a student needs in person, it may not be able to be their teacher because their teacher is at risk or has a family member who's at risk, and it may have to be someone they don't know. Then you have to weigh, okay, is that, is that going to be the appropriate way to go for that student? So it's just many variables and very individualized on a case-by-case basis.
This is Sarah. I have a question, and you touched on what I was going to bring up just then when you talked about compensatory education. And I imagine, I was wondering if you could talk about this, that you guys see in your future down the road when we can have in-person education, a lot of compensatory education. I know that our son just during short breaks he always every year qualified for ESY. So I know that you guys are just really bracing yourselves for what's going to come, I bet. But I don't know what you guys are hearing from maybe other things in other districts that have sort of given a glimpse of what, not COVID, but other things that have caused longer breaks. What you're hearing about how many of the students tend to, after such breaks as this, and this is different because we've got online now to sort of compensate for some of what is being missed. But
yeah, so not every district by a long shot in our area, even in our Central Kentucky region, has been able to provide one-to-one devices and hotspots for anyone who doesn't have internet access. So I do think that is really helping for our students, for them to have more opportunity to engage with the teachers and the related service providers. We have some students that absolutely love their speech teletherapy. That's something that they really look forward to. And so it has caused us to be a lot more creative and think outside of the box in order to provide the services. We recognize that there will be the need for compensatory services. I don't think that we should assume that it will be for every student, because some students are progressing quite well. There's a wide range in special education, as you know. So we have over 5,000 students with IEPs that range from very mild disabilities to very severe. And so it really will be individually determined, not by me, not by Adam or any of our administration, but by the admission and release committees who look at the data and decide, has this student progressed as they would have been expected to during this period of time, and then make decisions about what can we do. And, is that the way any of us would want it to be? No. but we want to do what is necessary and appropriate for students. So it's not something that we'll shy away from. If a meeting is held right now, today or tomorrow, that says that the team recognizes the student needs in person and we're not expecting to make significant progress if everything is remote, if we can provide it in person, then we will make every effort to do that. But if we can't, then once we're back in school, those decisions will be made about compensatory services by the team, so that it's very data driven and student focused.
Yeah, I mean, can I just follow up to that? I mean, I think that you highlighted this, but maybe it needs to be recognized a little bit further, which is we are seeing students, children with disabilities, all children with disabilities. We're seeing, you know, teachers and therapists do really good things for children during this period of time, although it is different and it has taken some adjustment. We know that there is progress and there is data to support what we have done and what we are implementing. So I think just to reiterate the fact that all of these topics are on the table, no doubt, but they will have to be vetted certainly by the data and the progress that the child is either demonstrating or not. So
Thank you. That was my intent in saying that, and I do, you know, as I said, there's a wide spectrum, and we are seeing the vast majority of students are making progress, but there will be some cases where we'll have to make those decisions. Sarah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say that I've also heard there are some students in special and regular ed who feel freer to participate in the online setting than they do when they have the eyes of the entire class upon them. So I've heard that there are some students who actually flourish a little more under those circumstances. I bet you're seeing it too.
We are seeing that.
New.
You know, a lot of our kids and even our teachers have really embraced the Bitmojis, where they create their own little, you know, character, and they don't, you know, as you all said at the beginning of this meeting, no one has to be on camera, and that's what we're saying in the virtual classroom as well. You're not required to turn on your camera. You can put your name, you can put your Bitmoji, you know, a little character you've created. And so it does allow, I think, students, a lot of students, whether they have a disability or are typically developing, do feel a little freer to maybe volunteer to answer when you don't have that social pressure maybe in the classroom.
Well, as long as my mic is on, I want to say too that how much I appreciate what you guys have had to do on a dime. That if you had seen it coming, you would have spent years of classes learning how to manage. So I definitely appreciate what you're being asked to do and getting a lot of pressures from every direction on. So.
Well, thank you for saying that. Our teachers and related service providers had just moved mountains. They really have. What they were able to accomplish those 2 weeks in March before spring break and before our official NTI started was nothing short of amazing. They really rallied and worked together, and we've had more time now to make the arrangements for the technology side and to have a more solidified plan, even though it had to keep changing to start the school year. But thank you for saying that, because it certainly is not something that any of us, I think, no matter what your field of work is or your relationship to school is, I don't think we could ever have anticipated being prepared for this. So we really have just tried to do our best. to make it work for each student.
With the start of school, are you all having meetings with individual ARCs to determine, because I hear a lot of times that the parent shares, their caregiver shares, oh gosh, he's really regressed, or he's really lost some skills. Is there an effort to get some kind of baseline data established, so at least you know kind of where they are in relation to March, or the beginning of the year?
Yeah, so priority meetings, and what we've had to, because there's lots of priorities right now, but the highest priority is we have concerns about a student's progress. Either the parent does or the teacher does, and we have a concern that they have failed to make appropriate or adequate progress, or are showing regression. And so that is going to trigger the need to come together much sooner, early in the year. And we've emphasized to staff how important it is to have that baseline data at the beginning of the year to help drive those discussions. So, some things are very obvious sometimes if it's a behavioral issue, but if it's an academic issue, and some behavioral issues, it's really important to give it at least a few weeks, to see with a renewed instructional component, especially with the remote instruction, are we seeing positive effects of establishing that at the beginning of the year. So there may have been a concern over summer about, the period of NTI and then summer. So that prompted really early ARCs, and others, they will be scheduling those according to what the data for each student says. As well as those timelines we're trying to meet. Adam mentioned that we are evaluating slowly but surely, and have some great teams working on that. So those are other elements that prompt kind of a tiered level of urgency to get those done and make sure that we meet and review those evaluation results as quickly as humanly possible.
So, Amanda, I don't want to neglect the last question that we received, which is how can caregivers best work with the district in supporting their child with autism? My guidance would be I think right now, especially the environment of the instructional environment that we are working in, is to be open and communicate clearly the challenges or the difficulties that you as a family are experiencing with your child. Communicate those so that we are aware of that. Communicate those with the case manager. Communicate those with the ACC if that's what needs to happen, so that a meeting can be held and so that the team can discuss and strategize what would be appropriate. The other thing that we recommend to teachers and paraeducators and families is just consistency of implementation. So the components that we're trying to do even in a remote setting, implementing those with consistency is critically important for all children, but specifically children with autism. And those would be my two nuggets of advice on this particular topic. If we don't know the struggles as a school system because we aren't seeing your child in person, we need that open line of communication, and that's the only way that we can help problem solve solutions for those particular challenging aspects that you're feeling as a family. So Amanda, I don't know if you want to add anything further to that.
I agree with what you said. I think, some of the strategies that we always try to have that coordination between school and home, you think of are like the visual schedules and a first then board, and things that we can do, a reinforcement schedule, things that we can do that are very consistent between what's happening in that virtual classroom and what you as families are carrying out in your home. Really benefit the student and the progress that can occur with them. And so we just want to continue that, even though it looks a little different than it normally does. We want to continue that consistency between the two environments, which has now become one environment.
Are there any other questions for Amanda or myself?
I don't mean to hog the conversation. Please forgive me. What, and I don't know, make sure I say this right. What about families that they're worried about losing their source of income with, needing to be home and doing things virtually? I know that's really outside the box, but is there anything that the district is sort of putting out there for consideration? Like, say you work a job and you're a single parent and you don't have anybody that can take over as far as the instruction. Are there any things that the school district is maybe offering out to families as options? Does that make sense? I don't know what I'm
It
saying.
does. I think that is, it's certainly a struggle for some families, and I do recognize that it's very challenging to try to mitigate that as a school district, other than to say, I think that our family resource centers offer lots of outreach and maybe connections to agencies that might be able to help. We do have our Parent Resource Center for families of children with disabilities, and they will provide support for, applying for respite, the supports for community living. I know that the wait list for Michelle P., if you don't already have it, is extensive. So it is a challenge. We're not able to send staff into homes for, a host of reasons, but the main one during this time would just be for safety purposes with the pandemic. But we are working with some of the daycare facilities. So if the families are able to access daycare, either like medical daycare or other daycare programs, we are very willing to just kind of try to coordinate schedules and work alongside with the parents' permission with the daycare to try to arrange, are there some times of the day that are better for them to be able to log on than others, and can teachers work with them? But if they are at home, we are doing the parent training components. I know that doesn't help with the job consideration at all. And I wish I had a good answer for that, Melanie, but
No,
I'm afraid I don't.
I just wanted to throw that out there because that was something I had heard in other conversations with other caregivers. So no, it's a conundrum. I mean, I don't know the
Yes.
answer.
And I know that that's the case. It's even more magnified for a child with a disability. But families with very small children are, in a similar situation. And I wish we had better answers. I really do.
Okay. Oh, and
Any,
there was
go ahead.
there was a great question that somebody asked. I just saw it and it was gone. But about paraprofessionals, are they resources that are still
They
the staffing of the district, or can they be anything utilized?
So they are being utilized. They are still employees that are being paid. They are still working, and they are being utilized for remote support. So if a student needs support with, reinforcement, or with vocational functioning and staying on task and that sort of thing, they are working with the students whose IEPs already provide for that. And so they just can't be there physically, but they are working and doing an amazing job, honestly, with the types of support that you wouldn't have even imagined for a para to provide virtually. But that doesn't help with having someone in the home, and they couldn't be hired if they're employed by the district to work during the school day. Then they couldn't be hired to come into the home during that time, for sure. We can't say what they do necessarily on their own time, but they couldn't do that during the school day. I think I saw another question. Oh, so I think I answered that. Someone had said, could we hire one?
So
to come
families
into the
can't.
home?
Yeah, not during the day. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But after hours, you're saying you can't control what the paras do. Okay.
I am saying that. That's correct.
Okay.
I'm going to stay away from that.
Say no more.
Is there anything else, any other questions that we can try to help with?
I'm not getting any questions on Facebook at the moment, just so you all know.
Okay, I was checking back in my emails too, and I don't have any further ones.
Well, thank you, Melanie. Thank you for arranging this and inviting us, and we're glad that we had an hour or so to spend with you guys, and hope that we've given some good, valuable information.
And will you come back?
Sure, we will come back.
Thank you.
Great.
We're happy to. Thank you for having us. Really, we really do want to keep communication open and work together. Try to figure all of this out the best that we can. Well, thank you. We'll leave you.
Well, I want to say I'm very glad to have met you both, and maybe sometime we'll meet again. But I appreciate it if you would come back. That'd be great. And it's, again, I really appreciate what you're having to strive toward that you never expected to have to. Nobody could have. I mean, you could read histories of pandemics past, but there's no way that you could have thought through or had any reason to think through all you have to think through now. So we really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's not easy on a regular day, and
Thank you.
It's a challenge.
yeah.
Thank you. I know it is for families, even more so. So we certainly want to be a support and a part of the team that tries to help navigate this situation that we find ourselves in. So Thank you very much. Please feel free to reach out to us if there are any other questions or concerns, and appreciate the families that were able to join tonight.
Well, and they're just a few of the ones who will have joined this later. So it's, everybody remember that this will be available on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and I'm one of the weird people who are not on Facebook, but probably you can go back and look at it on Facebook Live.
You can go back and look at it on Facebook.
I
So
thought so.
just so you know.
So yeah, to people, and we generally will have a lot more people view it that way than are able to view it in the moment. So it'll be seen a lot, and so good information that'll get spread even further. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And listen,
Bye.
everybody else stay on. I'll let our speakers leave. Have a good night. Appreciate that. And I'm just going to make one more announcement before we do. You're welcome to stay too. I was just looking back. Marie, is Marie still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Marie, you don't have to put on your camera. I don't care. But I was looking back at the what you sent out about ARC of Central Kentucky, and you and I wish that I had said something about that at the start of the meeting. But their ARC of Central Kentucky is going to have the annual conference is coming up, which is always a tremendous.
It's already been.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so this was 4 days ago. What?
Right. But
so you were saying that
we're thinking about having another meeting about voting. So we don't know whether there would be enough people to make it worth our while to do something on voting. So what do you think? Do you think there are people with disabilities who don't know their right to vote, who could vote but just don't know it?
It's possible. I
actually know of a few people who are adults with disabilities who do not know what their rights are to vote, and they have intellectual disabilities, but they are fully capable of voting if they had the information at hand and knew what their rights were.
Well, every year, Marie, I try to share again what the great set of information that that Wendy Wheeler Mullins put together, and she may have made a PowerPoint about it. It may be in that form. I can't remember, but she's a good resource. She has presented to us before about voting. So, she and Amelia.
Yeah, we were planning on having Nancy Chesser from the League of Women Voters to present, and then Wendy to present how she presents the information that's kind of not unbiased, tells about the candidates in an unbiased form that people can use to make their decision on who to vote for. So we're thinking about having them. So Joe, since you know some people that you think it would benefit from it, I'm going to push to have it. We'd probably have it like maybe the 3rd or 4th week in September, because October 5th is the cutoff day. So okay. But other than that, the annual meeting was last Thursday.
It was great too. It was really very informative.
I missed it. Sorry.
I don't know whether we recorded it or not. I'll have to check.
I got an email that there was no recording, but Melanie, can you recap the beginning when Brandon talked?
That's
Can you
right.
tell us what he said?
He would, oh gosh, and Lisa, you can probably do a much better job. He talked quite a bit about this big thing that's coming down the pikes called EVV, Electronic Visit Verification, and it's real specific to the waivers.
Oh, I've heard about that because Thatcher Support Broker told us about that, and so I looked into it.
Yeah.
And I am really, really not sure how that is going to work for parents like me who do participant-directed services, because the way it's supposed to work is you're supposed to have a specific time to start and a specific time to end. But where we're pretty much on call 24/7, it's going to be a little bit different.
So Joe, what they said you can do is you can, throughout the day, you can schedule a meeting, like right before you have a meeting, you can schedule that you're going to work with someone and then put down what you're going to do with them. And then you can sign out. You could work with Thatcher for 2 hours, and then you could go off And then an hour later, you could say you're scheduling another session with him, and then you can sign off. So you can sign on and off throughout the day and night.
Yeah. And one
So
thing that,
they have trainings on it. They're going to have more seminars on it. So I would suggest that you go on their website, community-based website, and find out when the next meeting is. I may have it, but they're having training sessions for the parents, the individuals on PDS throughout the year. It doesn't start till January 1st of next year. So they'll have more training sessions on it. I've been to every training session they've had so far. And they're going to have more.
Thank
Okay.
you for going, Marie.
I'll look while you guys talk and see if I can find out when the next one is.
So did he talk anything? Did he say anything about Appendix K?
say that again.
About what?
Appendix K.
Oh. Sounds mysterious.
It is mysterious.
I'll tell you that September the 2nd at 10 o'clock, they're going to have a town hall. And so if you go on, you have to be registered to go on it. But you could register to go on that. So tomorrow's the 1st. So you could register tomorrow to be on it on the 2nd. About EVV. Sorry.
Is that the last town hall?
No.
No, I think they're going to have more. If you go on the website, they have a list of all the meetings that they're going to have. So you can sign up for them on the website. So it's basically that your worker has to have a phone, or you have to have a phone, that you log into the TELUS website, to the TELUS program, and it captures where you are, at what time you start your services. It also captures it when you close, where you are. And they're going to have a drop down that will have like brush your teeth, comb your hair, whatever tasks you put in your plan. You'll have those drop down. And it may be just grooming, maybe one. They have not created the drop down yet. But then the way I envisioned it is that the person, like Vicki, will come in the morning. She'll have her cell phone. She'll go on and say she started at 9:30. So TELUS will capture she started at 9:30 at my house. And then the drop down will be grooming, cooking, Meals on Wheels, volunteer behavior. So they'll have the drop down, and she'll just click the drop down. She did this, 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 and she does it. And then she'll click out when she leaves at 3:30. It will capture where she is and what she did. And that will be the end of it. So I think that's what it is. So they haven't decided what kind of notes you have to make, because Medicaid requires that there be notes on certain services. So they don't have that figured out yet. Anyway, that's just generally what EVV is, electronic visit verification.
I will say something about it if anybody wants.
Go for it.
I think it's awful, and I think they should just pick the biggest company and buy Hazel. The company that they use is called Tell Us, and the data that it's recording and the fact that they're recording, especially PDS parent, they're requiring PDS parent caregiver to participate is problematic. And there was a lot of activism 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when these rules were being made at the federal level, and Kentucky is choosing to take the route that everybody argued against by asking for parents to record their location with their children at various points throughout the day. And there are really good reasons for electronic verification, but don't seem to be good reasons to require that level of information. And it is not what the federal requirements call for. And I think we posted good stuff to the listserv, but I also just dropped the link in here in chat. It's on the CHFS website, and if you Google EVV Kentucky, you'll get to the stuff pretty quickly. There are recordings of the earlier discussions. I haven't watched them all, but they don't seem to have a lot of answers to the really hard questions. The state officials don't seem to have the answers for the hard questions that we all need to be asking, because this is a huge amount of private details about, people. And it's not a Kentucky company. We don't know who their subsidiaries are. They haven't been around for very long. And they haven't got a good review on the Google Play Store. And I think we can all do better. But we only have like 6 weeks to say, hey, this is terrible, do something else. And the individual agencies still get to choose alternative software, but nobody knows enough about it to make those decisions yet. So I asked Bluegrass Ad what they were going to do, and they said that they were still learning, but the deadline to provide alternative technology to the state for sort of connecting is like now. So anybody that's going to use an alternative had to have already figured that out before the state really said, here's what's going on. There are other companies besides Tell Us, but yeah, that's what I know so far.
Wow.
I have something else to say. This is based on a federal law, federal regulation that says that all states have to go to electronic visit verification. The federal law does not require the states to make parents who provide services for their children to participate in it, but Kentucky has decided to. So I'm not happy with that. I don't think that's right. But Kentucky has decided to, even though the federal government doesn't require that.
It's very interesting.
Well, so if there was anything that we could change, and I don't think they would be holding town halls if there wasn't really an opportunity for public input to change the process, although it's possible. That's really something that is worth making an issue about. And in the end, if they didn't have to include family caregivers or any other stuff that they're including, it may save the department money, which would then mean that there was more money for care for people. And I have asked how much we're spending to do this. And it does seem like the costs are also going to fall on the hands of participants as far as devices and service. And then there's a whole chain of other problems, like what happens if the device doesn't work? What if there's a mistake? You know, what if, you know, somebody had a meltdown in the middle of what would typically be scheduled as a shift or activity? And, you know, how do you schedule those things in? Who does that? And who has access to that information? Those things are not answered. We do not know that yet. So, did you hear differently about those things from your case manager, Joe?
Joe.
Yes, sorry. I was having trouble with my sound.
Lissa just asked you a question. She asked if you had heard differently from your case manager. Is that right?
What I heard differently about what? I'm sorry, I missed it because my sound is all messed up and I can't fix it.
Lissa, I think that's what she asked. Lissa, what did you ask her? I don't want to misstate your question.
So there are a lot of unknowns about, like, for PDS, like who schedules that, and it should be the employer, and who's the employer, and what happens when a mistake is made or a change of schedule is necessary. And I gave the example of, like, if there's a meltdown, you have to stop and start over again. You know, you stop and start later, because if you only are covered for X number of services and not for the hours of time that you are serving as a natural support or an unpaid caregiver, then you have to log out to handle a meltdown, right? So how that works and how mistakes are corrected, those things are all really problematic. And they can all result in either, they didn't call it a corrective action, but an educational experience for the person interacting with the app, an opportunity to learn how to do it right, or shifts not being paid or approved, or you know, they haven't spelled that out. If it comes up, I want to argue that it should never be considered cause for a corrective action process.
Right. I'm not really getting much in the way of answers regarding that. Our Thatcher support broker just really doesn't want to say too much for fear of telling me incorrect information, which I completely understand. Nobody wants to pass along incorrect information. But I'm seeing a lot of problems that can come out of that with the PDS option, because there are certain things that I do with him during the day that they can overlap. And I mean, when we work on goals, we might be working on a goal at like 8 p.m., but I've already said, okay, I'm calling it quits for that day. And, you know, we have to make sure that we do not go over our allotted time. Like for Thatcher, my time with Thatcher is supposed to be 34 hours. Well, I work on goals with him way more than 34 hours. So, like, how exactly do we manage that? I really don't know. So, but I'm not getting any answers from Thatcher support broker either.
So this is a really complicated problem, and it's something that I think that we absolutely need to address. If you imagine that Thatcher had an agency caregiver, and the plan of care was distinct enough that each service was, you know, clear and not, you know, blending into other things. Even if you imagine that, and that there's not an available natural support, then it's complicated. And I don't think that they've thought of it that way.
Right. I don't think they did either. And the biggest issue I see with anything that we could possibly say about it is this looks like it might be a nationwide kind of thing, not just a Kentucky State thing. So when it's
Okay,
nationwide
so
and you have different rules in different states about how you can even do participant directed services, or even whether or not you can do it, like in some states they don't even allow parents to do what we're doing with our kids, and the problem with that is I know several of you already know we tried every possible way to get somebody through traditional services to come in, and even as PDS, you know, participant directed services, we still can't get anybody for respite, not because we don't qualify for respite, but because nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to say, come in and say, okay, well, this child has all of these particular issues and I don't know how to deal with this, so they just don't. And these are people who were, you know, really close to Thatcher and they want to spend the time with him, but they don't necessarily want to learn things like when is it appropriate to give seizure rescue meds or something like that, or when do I need to look for something different, what things do I need to worry about, what medications do I give them at what times, and that sort of thing. And so yeah, we haven't even been able to find somebody that we can trust to even do respite services for us, even though he qualifies.
I think that's a different issue. I think the EVB is how you report what you do. And you only can report, you were talking about, you do natural supports, you work more than what your plan is. But I
Right,
think
but
the way they look at it is that you've got a plan and they're only accounting for the hours that you are getting paid for that were approved under your plan.
right, but what I'm saying is, you know, the way that we write up our time, you know, we may work on goals like 2 hours in the morning through, and then he has like maybe an hour or so break, and then we have more goals, and then, you know, so there, I mean, there's some days where the going out into the community is several hours long for him. And so how do you break that up? Because I mean, even with just putting in what I do for goals for him and not natural supports, I almost always, unless, you know, I have a week where I'm having surgery or something, go over the time limit, and I have to backtrack and say, okay, where can I cut time? And that's what a lot of participant directed service parents are doing. They're saying, where can I cut time? Not where can I add time, because we're constantly working on those goals. I mean, we start when he wakes up, we finish when he goes to bed, and there are breaks in between. There are several breaks in between. And I'm not saying like working specifically on something like wiping or something like that. That'd be a natural support. But like one of his personal goals is working on personal hygiene, you know, showering, that sort of thing. Well, we take like 45 minutes to do all of that, and that's you know, that's just the quick shower, the getting dressed, you know, put on deodorant, brush your hair, brush your teeth, all of that. We can go for 45 minutes just on that one goal.
Yeah, there were people that asked the question of, will this keep track of how many hours I already have? So that each day you could check in to say, you know, like you've got so many hours, like, you know, you're allowed 40 hours a week or however many is in your plan. And so they said they were going to work on trying to see whether they could get it so that it would keep track of how much time you have. So anyway, I mean, these are good questions, but I'm just saying this is kind of what, they don't have this completed yet. I mean, they don't
Right.
even, yeah, so I think
Right,
we've got
because
time to
if
have
you
input
go
on it.
if you go over, they immediately reject it.
Right.
So, I
They're
mean,
saying you
whatever
can
your
do this.
time is.
Thing is, you do it, the difference is you're doing it day by day. The way you're doing it
Right.
now, you report it over 2 weeks. And you can make your adjustments during those 2 weeks, you know, before you send in your final 2-week, you know,
I really
thing.
liked it at Path Forward where we did it weekly. So instead of every 2 weeks, you know, we had like a pretty set time, and it made it so that nobody could overlap time. I really liked their system, but like you would clock in, you would clock out, and it would keep track of, okay, you spent this many hours with so and so, and it did that through the week, and then you made sure everything was correct.
I think that's a disadvantage to this because it's a day by day thing. And so you can't go back and correct it after you have that day. They did say you can put notes in. So if you've got something that you want, that's usually starts at 9:30, and let's say Vicky got in not an accident, but we'll say got stuck behind traffic for half an hour, whatever. And anyway, so she's late a half an hour. You know, then you put a note. Didn't start this until 9:30 because of traffic. You know, and that's one way they said that you can fix it if it doesn't go according to Hoyle. But my understanding is that you can schedule your hours like right before you do them. So you can clock in and say you're scheduling hygiene, you know, at whatever time it is, and then you can and actually the way
Okay,
they
that
showed
makes
it,
a little bit more sense because, like, you know, some days we work on hygiene at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes we don't even start that until like 10.
right?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like giving him his medicine, that would be a natural support. I do that anyway because I'm his mom. But there are certain aspects of hygiene that, because I'm also his CLS person, I'm doing, you know, I'm helping him with that a typical 13-year-old wouldn't need help with that.
Well, it looks to me like they're planning for traditional. I wouldn't want to do this under traditional at all, because under traditional, the traditional person schedules it, and they, you know, they can schedule it however they want. So I don't like that because you know, like you don't have control over the scheduling if you're in traditional. But if you're in PDS, then you're the one that can control the scheduling, and you can schedule it at 10, you know, and then close it off at such and such a time. You can schedule the next thing whenever you're going to do the next thing. But it looks, I mean, it looked to me like that if you have, you know, like different things like cooking and going out to the community, that all you have to do is, like, I'm envisioning that Vicky signs in at 9:30, and then she just clicks off. Click, community, went to the community, click. You know, had a bath, click. Ate breakfast, click. Ate lunch, click, click, click. At the end of the day, all she has is a series of clicks, and then she signs out. That's what I'm envisioning. But they haven't said anything about notes. I don't know whether she still has to write up the notes on what she did. But anyway,
The
yeah.
way I understand it, because Thatcher support broker did say that there would still be some, like, some notes, like, you know how with participant directed, we have to do like a monthly thing where we make sure that they know, like, any doctor's appointments or any medical changes, any school changes, anything like that. Mine typically, those notes look the same each time I turn in timesheets, because I update them every time I turn in timesheets instead of just once a month. But when I do it, like, I might change a couple of sentences. I'll change like where all we went that week for community outings. And I'll change like any pertinent information that that applies to him that has changed, but things that are ongoing, I just leave in there. So I'm kind of wondering how that's going to go too.
I do too.
I
I don't
don't
know.
I don't know, but I'm hoping that it'll be better for us because, well, the spreadsheets are, you know, they're time consuming and you can't electronically sign them. So, I mean, that's the one huge drawback that I've seen with those spreadsheets is that we can't electronically sign them. And so what I do is I just I print them out, I sign them, I scan them back into my computer, and then I send them through email. I mean,
So you have to sign in. That's another issue.
right.
You have to sign in. So Chris can't sign. So I asked, if Chris can't sign, you know, who signs on for it? So they said that the representative can sign, you know, if the person can't, and you make a note of it, this person cannot sign things. And then I asked the question, if Vicky drops Chris off at Brad's house and I'm not there, who can sign then? And they said, well, that way, you know, that you can make a note of it, that he can't sign, and it's okay for them to transfer Chris from Vicky to Brad with me not having to be there. So I wouldn't have to sign it then. But I'm kind of concerned about the signing of it because you do have to have somebody sign off on it each time. Anyway.
Yeah, that sounds like it would get really difficult because even with Donnie being Thatcher's representative and us being in the same household, it still makes it difficult because we're not always in the same place at the same time. In fact, much of the time we're, you know, if it weren't for the fact that I couldn't drive right now, Donnie would probably be out driving right now. He would be driving for Lyft and I would be doing all the Thatcher stuff. But he's home just because I can't drive right now until Thursday.
It's a work in progress.
I think they're going to find a lot of bumps when they release it, and they have to have it released by what, next year?
January
Or
1st. It goes into effect January 1st.
Yeah, see, and it's
So-
the next year's not even that far away anymore.
So they are offering it to case management to say that they will have pilot projects. So some people are going to start doing it in November of this year. And then maybe they'll get the kinks worked out by January. But the agencies have to volunteer to do it on their own. And the other thing is what Lisa was talking about, that there's something, I don't know, it's called Manus or something like that. I can't understand what they're saying. But there is another company that some traditional agencies are already using that's similar to TELUS. And they said that company, people who use that company can continue to use that company and not use TELUS. So, you know, so there is one other company that's already existing. And I don't know if anybody else wants to join that, join that instead of TELUS. I don't know.
Bluegrass is going to use TELUS, so.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, they've already told, at least
Okay.
Thatcher's support broker told me that.
Okay, cool. So at least we know that much, yeah.
So I think that one of the big gaps here is the way that plans of care are written. And I think that when they designed the software, thinking about the national market, which they did, they envisioned people who would work shifts, and they didn't imagine people who would need to log in and log out multiple times a day. And so one of the questions in the one meeting that I did watch was from a mom who needed to turn her adult kids in the middle of the night. And the question was, did she need to log in the middle of the night to do that before she did it? And that is kind of the case. So whereas if somebody is in a group home and there are 3 shifts of workers, they just log in at their beginning of their shift and log out at the end of their shift. So the way that plans of care are written is really going to either have to become more robust and, and be the plan of care that everybody expects it to be, or the software is going, the way that we use the software is going to have to be a lot more flexible. I do not know who BGADD is using yet. They did not know yet. Good night, Melanie.
Should we call this a night?
Yeah, I'm okay with calling it a night. I think we got some really good information about the this new system that we're getting ready to have to use. So that's good. But yeah, I think it would be good to call it a night because it is almost 8:30.
Also, these questions, next month is about waivers, and it's possible there'll be some knowledge, more knowledge then, and something that can be answered by our guests next month on this same
Right,
topic.
and maybe this going out on Facebook and on YouTube will be good because then maybe people will come to the September meeting with a lot of questions.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
Maybe somebody will pop in with some answers.
Who else
It'd be
coming?
different. What did she?
I don't remember. I have to look through my email, but Mel sent me something about
Yeah.
it. Give
Yeah,
me
me
just a second and I'll see real quick before we go.
I'm looking also. Seems like she sent it on Friday. Yeah, Pam Smith. She's Professor Pam Smith. She's the division director for community alternatives within the Department for Medicaid Services. She's a registered nurse with a bachelor's degree in business management. Has over 20 years experience with Kentucky Medicaid. At least 15 of those have been spent in management of the 1915C waiver programs. So she'll be talking about the waivers. She's committed to improving the waiver program, stakeholder engagement. So there you go. Pam Smith, pam.smith@ky.gov. That's who she is.
Is it just her?
I think so. Well, that's all that Mel has sent us.
That's all so far, but as we go through the next couple of weeks, we might have some more information. It will be on the flyer. It'll go out around the middle of the month.
Mm-hmm. And to anyone else who has stuck through this on YouTube or Facebook Live in person or in the recorded version, send us questions. When you get the flyer, the meeting flyer, you can reply to that. You can send them straight to Joe. You can send them to me. You can send them to Melanie. Anyone who's on the email.
You can also type in the chat box on our website.
Mm-hmm.
All of our board members get information, get all the emails that come from there.
Mm-hmm. But if you have a question for the meeting speaker, you don't have to be at the meeting. If we have these questions in advance, we'll ask them for you, and then you can watch them being answered on video, the recorded version of it. All right. I think we're going to hang this up.
Good night.
Thanks to everybody for being here.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Good night. Bye, Joe. Hope you feel better.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.